World War III update. I don't have too much, but I have a little, so I figured I'd do that. All right, where should I start? I guess this one's going to have a lot to do with China, so I guess we'll go with China first. Obviously the provoking in the South China Sea and the saber rattling is, at fever pitch. Obama's there saying that how, we're ready for war with China, so to speak, and that, we're not going to allow China to do this, we're not going to allow China to do that. And you have several other figureheads saying the same thing. Now, that said, China and Russia are going to be doing a joint naval exercise together, and this is where it kind of gets all kind of interesting. Also, too, the United States is leaning on China to kind of mellow out North Korea, because our favorite leader, Kim Jong-un, was there with his very powerful pudgy fist. He could hit a button at any time. And they've been lighting off missiles and rockets and stuff like that, but they don't really have anything that's stable yet that they can rely on. And the North Koreans basically came out, made a threat about these, naval drills going on, whatever, and in response, the U.S. sent in a B-1 Lancer to buzz the border, whatever, so they're not very happy with that. What does get interesting is, after the ruling of The Hague, you have to understand, there was no Asian countries really represented in The Hague ruling, which really has not, it's a complete separate entity from, there's nothing, China had no representation in this, and they came and decided, said, no, this is not their territorial waters, whatever. So China's been pretty much on edge ever since, saying that, no, we are going to defend our area. And they've been moving missile systems out to islands and stuff like that, as far as 600 miles out off the Chinese coast. So they know war is coming. They have no doubt that the United States is going to war with them. They just don't know the date and time. They've also come out with an official statement, once again, from the Chinese government, saying that we're ready to fight a people's naval war in the South China Sea, something along that lines. So People's Republic Army, that of China, and that kind of, again, that's pretty serious stuff when it comes right on open TV in China and stuff like that, where they're talking about this, saying, yes, we are going to have a war with them. They won't leave us alone, that type of thing. And again, it's very easy to see who's provoking who. United States is here, China's way over here. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple to see who's provoking who. And while we can't let China control the shipping lanes or whatever, China is not going to threaten anybody in the shipping lanes. If you haven't picked up about how the Chinese do business, then they do business with anybody that wants to do business. That's all they want to do is do business. They kind of cheat a little. They don't have regulations. Yeah, sure. But they don't care to shoot their potential, blow their potential customers out of the water. They have no interest in doing that. They just want to have the territorial claim. And again, this ninth line zone or whatever, the territorial claim goes back 300 years. It's been a banter of, and again, let the Asian countries work that out amongst themselves. Everybody's taking a claim on it. But the main reason why they're taking a claim on it is simple: resources. It's about, nobody cares about a couple of the Senkaku Dayu Islands. Nobody cares about the islands themselves. It's what's under the islands. It's what's around the islands. There's minerals, there's lithium, there's gases and oils and all kinds of stuff. So that's what it's really about, because that makes China more independent. Now, the Philippines has made a claim to it, Taiwan's made a claim to it, Japan's made a claim to it, everybody's made a claim to it. And Japan, again, their Navy, they're out there saying, yeah, we're ready to go to war with China at pretty much any time. And then coming in on this one, we have some mates from the land down under going to get in on this one, eh? They're going to throw a shrimp on the barbie, take the Collins out for a nice little patrol, and we're going to go spy on the Russians and the Chinese. If they get too close, we'll throw a boomerang at them. A harpoon boomerang from our, sperm whale-like sub, the Collins sub. I don't know how old the Collins subs are. They must be pretty old. Maybe because I'm not up to speed on the Australian Navy. I do know they have a good-sized blue water Navy, but in comparison to China, China has the number 3 largest submarine fleet at 68 submarines. I don't know how many warships they have. The North Koreans have the second largest, with 70 submarines, and the United States has the largest with 75 submarines. That said, the North Korean submarines are pretty archaic. Many of them could be classified as prototypes, that type of thing from the 1950s and earlier. But they do have some newer stuff like Kylo-class subs and stuff like that, which for North Korea, those things are pretty dangerous. And the guys, I think, in number 4 are the Iranians with, how many subs did they? They had 60-something. I think they had 63 subs. Again, most of them light, those little midget subs and stuff like that. Or maybe it was 30-something they had. I can't, there's a, no, it was maybe India. I think India had 60-some-odd subs. So all in, I think in active duty, there's something like about 400 subs, maybe 500 worldwide. After the top 5, I know Iran is probably in the top 5, and then after Iran or India, I can't remember. I think India had a little bit more submarines, and India actually has newer submarines as well. Everybody else drops down to like 17, 15, 14, 12, that type of thing. 4, like Canada, we have 4. I mean, if we were to get our old O-boats out, we could add another 17, but those things are pretty much dry docked and rusted out. They can never be seaworthy again. So that gives you an idea. The other thing is the type of submarines and stuff like that. Again, the Trident 2 submarines that Britain has, there's still all the controversy with that. The new Prime Minister, she seems to be okay with the submarine program. I don't think they're going to, regardless of how the people feel about it, I don't think they're going to get rid of that submarine program anytime soon. It is a boomer sub and stuff like that. And there was problems with the missiles, right? So they're revamping the missiles. They're basically updating the technology. Now, the thing about a submarine fleet is that they're expensive to run. I don't think there's a more expensive vehicle on the planet to run than a submarine. It's just such a high maintenance machine, That said, the best subs in the world, well, right now the Russians probably take the cake with the Yazan-class sub and their new Bory-class subs. Those things seem to be pretty, they're calling them black holes in the water because you can't detect them. A lot of that could be just the tactics that the submariners use too. And of course, I think it is for diesel electrics. I think it is the Swedes that have I think it's the Gato class or Gantha. I can't remember the name of the sub, but their little diesel electric sub apparently is the quietest one on record. Next to that, the Kylo class sub, which is very heavily exported to places like Iran, North Korea. China has some of them. And I think it's the most widely exported submarine out there. India has them. A whole bunch of people have these Kylo class subs. That type of thing. So Greece even has a bunch of subs. I was actually surprised. Greece has like 16 or 17 or like 12 or 14 subs. Considering how broke Greece is. Now, mind you, can they use them? I don't know. But their navy is actually quite... Turkey was, I think, just after them. That type of thing. So, getting back to Australia, they're taking their Collins-class subs and their P-3 Orions basically to monitor the Russians and Chinese in this joint South China Sea drill. And basically, the Russians and the Chinese are saying, yeah, we're going to work together to, because they know, the Russians and the Chinese know that when one country's attacked, the other one's going to get attacked simultaneously. So the Russians and Chinese, they've always kind of had to have a pact to work together. They always kind of have. And don't quote me on this, but I believe this comes close to the anniversary of the Kursk as well. So in September, when all this stuff kicks off, it should be interesting to see what happens. I can't remember the exact date of the Kursk. I'm going to be doing a video on the Kursk in the coming week or so because I'm going to have the time. Once I'm done, at the end of this week, I'm done my motorcycle course thing. Then I'm going to be at home for a good while. Take at least a month off of going to town anyway. Number one, it's expensive. Number two, it's just, it really does cut into my schedule. So the videos, you probably started knowing that the video content is starting to increase again because I'm not so, in town every other day type of thing. But once that's done, I want to do another thing on the Kursk just so people can get an idea of what happened. But this sets us up for another Kursk-style incident. For those of you who don't know about the Kursk, basically it was an Oscar II class sub that was doing drills with the Chinese, kind of like what they're going to be doing now. It was a huge naval drill, and it's when they were debuting the Scaval torpedo. Now, the official story is one of their dummy torpedoes blew up. The hydrogen peroxide diesel, engine caught fire or something like that, and it blew up the torpedo bay, and that type of thing. The unofficial story is that there was an accident between the Kursk and a French submarine, crippling the French submarine, completely T-boned to the at 90 degrees to the Kursk, and an American sub was T-bone at 90 degrees to the Kursk, and they believe they heard torpedo bay doors opening. Maybe the Kursk crew thought they were being attacked, or something like that. Again, these things we'll never really know because all those men pretty much died. Now, here's the thing. This is where it kind of gets really sad, and this is kind of how pawns are used, and this is my theory. If the second story was true, you have 300 and some odd sailors that were in the Kursk, okay? Out of these 300 sailors, okay, some of them could have been rescued. They were tapping on the hull, writing notes, whatever. They believe the Americans fired a torpedo in defense of the French submarine taking out the Kursk. Now, the reason why they say this, and when you think about what they did with the Kursk, it is kind of suspicious. When a submarine goes down, they raise this thing from the bottom, right? They dry docked it, and they cut it up as quickly as they could. The Russians cut it up as quickly as they could. The Russians refused basically aid from other nations to help rescue these sailors, which were running out of air. Then, on top of that, the hatches weren't universal. One good thing that came out of the Kursk incident is all submarines are now fitted with a universal hatch that you can, basically be saved by several different nations, that type of thing. Everybody has that way if you get the rescue sub comes in, it can link up to your hatch. And what I'm thinking happened is probably the second story was true. Now, what happens when 300 sailors come up and say, we were attacked, we were going to fire a torpedo, and they fired on us first? Or maybe they were moving stuff around so that more things wouldn't go awry. Who knows? Because, think about it. It could have just been torpedoes falling around. A submarine, that's a lot of tonnage. Running into another submarine is a lot of tonnage. They would know what the hell that was. What equipment was damaged, the sonar equipment. They might not know what's going on. Therefore, they might have prepared a torpedo in self-defense, opening the bay door or whatever. And at that angle, yes, the Americans technically would have been justified in shooting in the sense that if that torpedo bay door gets fully open, there's no defense for the French sub. Maybe the Russians were going to fire on the French sub. We'll never know. Maybe they were just getting ready as a defense. We don't know. But it went from a drill to an international incident very quick. Now, that said, because it took place under the waves, and the reason why this story is important is because for my Australian brothers and sisters that are going to be serving on these submarines, this can happen to you too. Don't get too close. That's the problem with saber rattling. It leads to a Kursk-style incident. So what could happen here is, I think the Russians probably said, how much air do the submariners have? 3 days worth. Okay, let's not try to rescue them until the fourth day. Why? Because that would have put us right into a armistice or an actual war. It could have started World War III. It really could have. I know some people say, no, it would have worked it out. That kind of thing can get you into a war. Now, we go back to the South China Sea. Again, the Russians cutting up the Kursk right away after it comes out. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that submarine was well inspected for letters and, because somebody... Yeah, the love letters will always make it into the news and the public and stuff like that. But somebody probably wrote down what happened, took the minutes saying, we were sunk at this date and time, put it in the safety box. They'll find it, they'll know what happened. That'll never see the light of day. Why? Because, in other words, it's a cover-up from the Russian side and the American side. Now, on the Russian side, there were generals saying, no, that thing was hit by a torpedo. Because of the way a torpedo will cut through a hull, there was a perfect Mark 48 size 660 millimeter torpedo hole right where the explosion took place. So that suggests that, yeah, they were hit with a torpedo. Maybe they weren't. Maybe there was a torpedo came out, but the hole was going in. Like it's kind of one of those things. So will we ever know? Was it a simple malfunction of equipment? Who knows? That's the problem when they're saber rattling. The French sub got too close. Maybe the Russians got too close and were saber rattling with them. It doesn't really matter really who's at fault. What matters is what can it escalate to, right? And that's what I worry about for the Australians here, is that we're setting up for a Kursk 2 scenario. We really are, only this time it's with the Australians. So what the Australians are doing is basically they're going to be monitoring with everybody else. The Americans will be monitoring these naval drills, which is not uncommon. But when we're talking submarines, we have to understand there could be up to 70 other submarine or 68 other submarines in this area. from the Chinese, and another 70 from the North Koreans if they decide to join in on this exercise too, which I don't think they will, but you never know. They could be there monitoring as well. And I could see actually an incident occurring between a North Korean sub and a Australian sub more than a Chinese one, because the Chinese ones, I mean, the Chinese aren't stupid. They will not fire first. They will sable rattle, they'll push the limit, but they will not fire first. The North Koreans, however, they're a lot more propagandized. I can imagine their submarine crews are a little more euphoric in their mission. Think, this could be the big one. You know what I mean? And yeah, picture the crew of the Collins submarines. They're going to be sitting there listening to people loading torpedo bay doors all day long, or loading torpedoes and maybe even firing dummy torpedoes. But is it a dummy torpedo? Is it coming our way? Think of a dummy torpedo being fired by a North Korean sub or a Chinese sub heading towards the vicinity of, maybe not right directly at, but close to the Collins subs, that type of thing. That gets detected. Okay, they just fired a torpedo. What is it? We have 3 minutes to figure it out. That type of thing. So then you hear the Collins subs, they'll probably hear them loading torpedoes. Okay, these guys are loading torpedoes. You see, the one-up ship goes right to the brink. At that point, once torpedo bay doors are open, what's coming out of the torpedo tube? Is it going to be a real, is it going to be live or is it going to be a dud? Who knows? And they might even fire live torpedoes at, some ships or whatever. There's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, whatever. There's going to be it's going to be busy for that submarine crew. They're going to be hearing everything. They're going to be hearing star shells going off. They're going to hear, the deck guns going off. They're going to hear the mortars, the mines, the sea mines. They're going to be hearing all that stuff and have to decipher what's part of the drill and what could be coming at them. So Chinese warship starts firing off all this stuff. Okay, so they're listening to that, and then they hear either splashes from airplanes or whatever in the water, and they hear the whizzing sounds of torpedoes. What direction are they going? Can't tell. The sounds are ricocheting all over. You got sonars pinging, you got everything. I mean, it's like really Crimson Tide meets Red October, you know what I mean? That type of thing. And then all of a sudden they hear, or detect a North Korean sub or whatever, and it's like they're at a T-bone to the Collins. Maybe they're just monitoring or whatever. Things can happen. You don't know how intense it's going to get. So how far back are they going to stay? I don't know. They should stay far back enough, allow enough room. Like if they're like 20 miles out, okay, not so bad. But even at that, you're still pretty close. But if they're in like, basically shadowing the ships, which happens in the Black Sea all the time, and there's been several submarines in the 1950s during the Cold War and the 1960s that have actually hit each other and went to the bottom. And each one of these incidents is like, and you have to understand, even a small submarine like the Collins class, I don't know how many crews there, but you're going to lose 50 guys minimum. If we're talking something bigger, you're going to lose anywhere from 150 to 300 guys. That's like massive loss of life in a very short amount of time. Submariners are definitely, I've always been interested in submarines and tanks. I don't know why. It's just tank warfare is just like a tracked submarine, with a big gun, that type of thing. Submarines are just like an underwater tank, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I don't know, there's just something about it, that cloak and dagger strategy, U-boat, U-571 meets Red October kind of stuff, Crimson Tide stuff, that really keeps me interested. I don't know why, it's I guess because it's such a intense thing that, you get one thing wrong, they're hunting you, you drop a wrench and they hear it 60 miles away, you know what I mean? Like, that's how good the sonars are. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, that's what kind of worries me about these drills when other nations show up in protest, or they have simultaneous drills in the vicinity. Okay, we're going to be doing our drill when you're doing your drill here. So another thing that could happen, firing, say, anti-ship missiles or whatever. Sometimes missiles go squirrely. They malfunction. P-3 Orion is flying around. All of a sudden, it looks like the missile's coming at them. They drop a torpedo. To start doing countermeasures. You'd say, "Oh no, that'll never happen. That'll never happen." But again, it's happened so many times. The Kursk is one of many incidents of submarines going down, and that'd probably be an interesting video of all the Cold War mishaps. Several of them almost always leading us close to nuclear war. But right now, we're in a more intense time globally than we were during the Cold War. The Cold War, there was a saber-rattling incident that would be scary once in a while. Now it's almost on a daily daily episode. You know what I mean? Where, oh my God, Chinese fighter jet nearly crashes into, you know, surveillance airplane, whatever. But again, and with the U.S. completely going into the disputed zone and everything like that, the Chinese have said, we will defend this area. So they're smart enough to not to shoot first. But what could make them shoot first? Let's say, like there's all kinds of hypotheticals go, like the submarine could stray a little farther into the area than what it should be. That type of thing. I mean, we're not playing around with, like a small toy. These are powerful weapons that are very close proximity from opposing nations that are technically already at war. On top of that, China is now really sucking in the gold. Nobody knows exactly how much gold China has. They release numbers from time to time, but are they the real numbers? Who knows? But the Chinese are also telling the Russians to step up their gold purchasing. A lot of this has to do with the economy. And again, it's all one system. Again, for those who might be joining for the first time, you have to look at the world into empires. The world is divided into two. Of the transatlantic, Anglo-American, Canada, the United States, petrodollar empire versus the Eurasian Pacific Empire, which is China, India, Iran, Russia, and the BRICS nations, and a few others that are joining up on the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Banking System. That type of thing. The Chinese are going for a world reserve status. It's going to take them a long time to get it fully implemented, but technically it's here, and people are joining up. It's just going to take a few, and it's happening faster than you could possibly imagine. So that means the petrodollar is dying, and if it's not already dead yet. All these wars are the only thing keeping the petrodollar alive. A lot of people don't understand that. The wars, debt and debt-based economy, when Max Kaiser said that there on his report from RT, he nailed it. The Americans only have a debt and death-based economy. You take the petrodollar or you get democracy JDAMs. And that's what Syria's about. If they stop the war in Syria, okay, you have to understand that's what's keeping the printing presses balanced. That's what's keeping the economy stimulated. Is every JDAM, $30,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 JDAM that they drop, uses up that money. It helps use up that money and keeps it flowing. As soon as that stops, the money stops flowing, and then the hyperinflation will just kick in. So because there's no economy, the Americans don't make anything anymore. They've given their economy away to the Chinese. The Chinese economy is just as rigged. Don't kid yourself. That's the problem. Everybody's got a rigged system. So the Chinese, though, they'll just keep rigging it however they rig it. But they do make, the difference is Chinese people are the number one savers in the world. The Chinese people don't rent things; they buy them. They don't take out loans. They save up and they buy. They're the number one savers in the world, no matter where they go. And maybe you can actually thank the communist system for this, because the communist system does absolutely nothing for their people to the point where they know they completely have to be self-reliant on their own. Retirees move in with their grandparents, move in with the kids take care of their parents, not the government. So China, again, they have a communist regime, but people say, oh, they're not communist anymore. They're communist, trust me. Step out of line in China, you'll find out how communist they are. But they don't take care of the people there. They don't really take care of the people. I mean, they're doing better than what they were, say, in the 1950s, but in the 60s and even the 1980s, before NAFTA came in, they're doing much better now. And the wealth gaps in China are just astronomical as well. But the government isn't there for them. Their government there is basically a communist/fascist system where it's there to help out the big businesses. So it's not much different from the United States in a lot of ways, or Canada here, or anywhere, where government is just in bed with the big businesses. So you have just fascism everywhere. But anyway, another thing to keep in mind is that with these drills going on, again, with all the rhetoric out there, there's just so much to cover. All these wars and everything like that. At some point, it's going to break. Now, the Russians and Chinese, the game that I think they're playing is let's wait and see. When the U.S. economy can no longer sustain itself, you'll have a populist uprising in the United States, or a civil war, or a military coup, or something like that, or a whole bunch of secession movements, whatever. That's what the Chinese and the Russians, so they'll wait 10 years. They'll play this game for 10 years. So that's why they're not shooting first. They've been more than provoked to shoot. But we're also seeing, like Turkey. I'm almost positive the Russians actually did the Turkish coup, helped do the Turkish coup, because of them flipping over how Turkey is now trying to play nice with Russia again. It seems they benefited from this coup. Now they're blaming the Americans for it, which normally you would say yes. Maybe there was an American coup to get Erdogan out of the way because he's too crazy and it's ruining the plan. He's outside his usefulness. So maybe a deal was struck with Russia. And what tells me that is that the gas pipeline between Russia and Turkey is now on again. That thing got kiboshed during the Ukraine uprising, and now it's back. So this is also going to completely destroy Ukraine's economy even more, which it doesn't really have an economy right now. It's completely in need of a bailout. So the thing is that the Turks and the Russians may be working together again. It's hard to say. It's a dirty game, right? We'll know in the future of you'll start to witness like little things happening that Turkey just happened to help the Russians hit this base. Oh, Turkey just happened to do this deal with the Russians. Oh, Turkey and the Russians and Assad are working together on this. Oh, the Iranians and people you would think that would never ever work together are starting to work together. Right now, our good friends, the Taliban, the ones that are no longer terrorists because they were fighting ISIS, well, they've again now switched back to, they haven't been fighting ISIS in several months, so I guess they switched sides again too. Zbigniew Brzezinski with his grand chessboard, when he helped arm the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against the Russians way back in the 1970s, 80s, that type of thing. That's the plan that's going on in Syria. Even Hillary Clinton has openly said, and again, these people are such psychopaths, they don't even realize when they're admitting how criminal they actually are. And this lady, trust me, if she's taking marching orders from Kissinger, she's in bed with Brzezinski as well. These are the most evil people on the planet. George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski. When these guys die, and pick a Rothschild and a Rockefeller, when these guys die, maybe their younger generation might not be as bad as them, but but you get guys like Evelyn Rothschild and Jacob Rothschild, David Rockefeller, all these people, all these things. That's why I think there's such a quickening right now. These guys are all getting old, and they really want, again, Zbigniew Brzezinski, whenever he talks about going to war with Russia, he froths at the mouth of the idea. This guy's completely nuts, and a criminal. So what the regime change plan was with Gaddafi, again, Gaddafi, not a good guy. He wasn't a good guy, but he did some good things. The longest aquifer water pipeline project, probably in history, that he was going to get all North Africans water. Like water. Who cares about just about anything in the desert but water, right? Like gold, you can keep your gold. I want water, People can survive off of water. If he would have done that, he would have completely stabilized the Middle East to a good degree. Was he a dictator? Yeah, they're all dictators in the Middle East. Every one of them. They have to be. If not, you get... even Donald Trump, and I'll get to Donald Trump in a moment, but... Yeah, what am I doing for time here? Even Donald Trump said it. He said getting rid of Saddam was a mistake. Now, when he says that, that means, he loves Saddam. No. He said, look, under Saddam, Iraq was stable. He wasn't a nice guy, but it was stable. He killed all the terrorists. And it was true. You didn't step out of line under Saddam's regime. That man didn't put up with anything. But that was stability in the region. It had to be ruled with an iron fist. Because when it doesn't, it was the same thing Gaddafi said. If you take me out, the whole Middle East will burn. He says it'll just run into sectarian violence everywhere. There'll be tribal wars all over the place. Was he wrong? Absolutely not. But I've also said the death of Muammar Gaddafi is the future of the world elites. Because when people lose everything, they lose it. And at some point, people are just starting to notice that they're becoming more poor. The United States has a higher unemployment rate now per capita than what there was in the 1930s. So think about that. And people back then were more self-reliant. People were used to being poor anyway. Right now, people are, live a quite decadent life, and they're going to be knocked off their rocker pretty hard. It's going to be a devastating thing. And you could see, if you really follow it, you can understand how bad the economies actually are. It doesn't mean there's no opportunity or nothing like that, but the old system is decaying and is failing. So you have to kind of get around that thinking outside the box. You have to think outside government. There's so many even private businesses that are technically private businesses, but they got all government contracts. Stuff like that is going to fail right away. Why? Because you're on the welfare system. You might not realize it. All government is welfare. Doesn't matter if we're talking a guy sitting on his ass, too lazy to work, or the highest paid government executive. It doesn't really matter. They're all welfare. Now, you had, this is on the CBC, and this is why the CBC should be privatized here in Canada for their bias reporting. In the States, they had 50 intelligence officers come out and say Donald Trump is going to be the most dangerous and worst president in history, and they won't endorse him. Donald Trump was fired back by saying, you're the exact people that created all the wars and stuff, and you're calling me, like that type of thing. So, once again, Donald Trump, you love him or hate him. Again, it's the best you're going to get, unfortunately, but he's not going to win. It will be a Hillary Clinton win if she survives. She is not doing well. That woman is not healthy. She took a little bit of a freaking deer in headlights kind of flip out the other day. I think she's probably, she's almost 70 years old. I think she'll be starting her presidency where Ronald Reagan left, where, the dementia, I think, is starting. I think she's got dementia. That's what I think. She's been known to fall from time to time. It just seems like her, it could be the stress of the campaign and stuff, too. I don't know if you guys seen the video of the DNC after they announced her candidacy. All the Bernie supporters left, and like half the arena was empty of Hillary Clinton's arena, when Hillary Clinton was there. But I think, maybe the stress is getting to her, and her dementia is actually kicking in, because she's starting to do weird things, like, you have these security guards walking around with these EpiPens and stuff like that for seizures or whatever. So this is a woman that combined in dementia with the psychopathic abilities that she has, and no remorse for humanity whatsoever, and hatred for humanity. If you follow this woman, you know what she's like. She is a very evil person. Being senile and in charge of the button is not the same as being an asshole in charge of the button. I'd rather an asshole in charge of the button. Why? Because at least he's going to be logical from time to time. He's not going to be, what's this do? Is this for the toaster? So there it goes, right? She will guarantee us a war. The Russians have said it. Everybody that's not just demonizing Hillary Clinton because, they're, misogynistic, racist, bigot types. No, but that actually know what this woman is about. She is evil. The two people that were criticizing her ended up dead in the past week. The Clinton Deadpools in general are just unbelievable. And scandal after scandal after, it just goes and goes and goes, right? But Donald Trump also said something interesting when they keep saying that, Donald Trump, he's going to be too dangerous to have in front of him. He's the only guy talking about negotiating with Russia, even Iran. He'll be tough on them, and China will be tough on them. The Chinese, trust me, the Chinese don't want Donald Trump in. He's not going to get in, they know that, but they don't support him. The Russians do. Why? Because it's in the best interest to the Russians to negotiate with the United States. Why? Because if they could, even if it's a facade, at least if there's a chance that people can pull the missile systems back from the borders of Russia, it's like the Russians are just practicing self-preservation here. It's like, at some point, we're going to have to take out these missile systems, and that's going to put us right onto a nuclear war. Now, apparently the Chinese are also launching some sort of a new satellite system. I think it's going to be some sort of weird communication system that's, pretty innovative technology. It's going to be out there in deep space, and it's almost impervious. So what the satellite actually does, Next News was covering it, and I thought it was interesting. But, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I can imagine they'd be using this for surveillance as well, too. And the Chinese have pretty much have all the technology, basically all the technology, U.S. technology that's out there is given to Israel. Israel then turns around and sells it to the Chinese, the great ally that Israel is. The Israeli government, I hate the Israeli government. And they're not the Israeli people, but the Israeli government, they're shitbags. These Zionist shitbags, I really hate them. They're so dirty. And all this war is for them in the first place. That's the worst part, It's like the Greater Israel Project. Again, if you don't know what that is, you better, I did the video on it a little while back. And I did it because when I talk about these things, that's what, I still have to do the Zbigniew Brzezinski's Grand Chessboard and stuff like that, and do a little more on Henry Kissinger, just so you know who these players are. Once you understand these players, you understand who Hillary Clinton is. That's who she takes her marching orders, her exact words. I take my marching orders from Mr. Kissinger. Because she was ecstatic that she only has to go down the street to the UN Assembly to find out what she should be doing. That sounds like somebody who really cares about the sovereignty of your country, right? And right now with Agenda 2030, and Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, next one I think is going to be the Agenda 2063 or something like that. If we're still around as a human species, who knows? By that time we're going to be blown to bits. But we also know that with Donald Trump, again, he wants to bring jobs back to America. He's talking about lowering the taxes on the middle class and getting rid of regulation. Hillary Clinton, maybe it was a slip, but it's like, we're going to tax the middle class. But then again, maybe she's telling the truth. I bet you she meant to say tax the upper class, the one percenters. But they never do. You know, Obama was supposed to go after these one percenters, like the Koch brothers and all of them. They don't. They never take these guys. They never get these guys. Everybody else pays the tax. Obamacare is extremely, really bad right now and failing. And yeah, anybody on Obamacare is paying like double or triple what they were. Going to be paying double or triple what they were. It's a tax. That's all Obamacare is. It's not a healthcare system. It'll help out a few have-nots, but that's it. Everybody else is in that bracket where they can't use it. You know what I mean? It's kind of designed that if you're healthy, you're going to be punished more. If you don't use the first something like $5,000 or $2,500, you don't get to, you can't use the deductible. You get fined if you don't pay it. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. That said, the IRS and the post office is getting more ammo. Yeah, I said that. It just sounds weird every time. I don't know why the post office would need more ammo. I thought they wouldn't want people to go postal. You know, I don't know. Like, what are we gonna? The postman there with Kevin Costner? Where what are they're preparing for that scenario? It's like, okay, yeah, you're still gonna have to deliver the mail. Look, if you have to do it in the snow, you have to do it in the rain, you have to do it through a civil war. You're going to deliver that mail. I admire the dedication, but yeah, they're getting hollow point rounds or something like that. Lisa Haven was covering it. You can go see what she had to say about it. So again, all these, the Department of Education's getting ammo. Like, what's going on? What do they know? I think we all know what they know. It's just nobody knows when it's going to happen exactly, right? But the economy is collapsing in a lot of ways, and a lot of people, it's when those food stamps go out and the EBT cards, all that stuff, that's when I think you see the real shit hit the fan, that type of thing. So, yeah, the election, I think right after the election when Hillary Clinton wins, because it's her turn to win, right? So, I don't think that many people are going to actually vote for this lady, but I don't think it really matters. It's just how are they going to steal the election? Some people are making predictions of like a 5% difference in favor of Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump is attacking veterans and stuff like that. The Muslim guy is not Khan. What the hell is his last name there? Anyway, the one that was out there talking, about Donald Trump. Again, a Muslim Brotherhood supporter. Donates to the Clinton campaign, etc., etc., etc. So he's propaganda too, using the death of his dead son as propaganda. So you can see the propaganda they're throwing at anything but Trump. Oh, Donald Trump is dangerous. He's going to get us into World War III. But when you go listen to Trump, yeah, the man's an asshole. There's no doubt. He wouldn't be where he is if he wasn't an asshole. But the thing is I think he'd actually make an okay president. He's not going to fix the system. He can't fix the system. The system is too big, too complicated, and it's broke. You can only start a new system. That's it. Like the other one just has to die. It's dying anyway. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's going to have its turmoils. It's definitely going to have its turmoils. You might get a race war during a Trump presidency for sure. George Soros money would go extremely, again, Soros and the Rothschilds, they just donated millions to the Clinton campaign, that type of thing. Bernie Sanders' betrayal of the left. The nice thing about that is what happened with Bernie Sanders people is also what happened to the Ron Paul people. They basically harpooned him, right? Ron Paul, it wasn't quite as obvious, but it was obvious to people who were following it. They basically never give Ron Paul. Ron Paul was the best chance the Americans would have had. That ship has sailed. There's nothing to do about it. He's too old to run again. It's too bad. I like Mr. Paul. He's consistent. This is where, if you want to call me, oh, you're just anti-Clinton or whatever. No, this is where you can make the comparison. Look at everything Ron Paul has voted on, or even a few things. He has been consistent since he's been in politics of his stance on stuff. The man is honest, period. His son would have been probably the most moderate you could get, Rand Paul. I like him. He's not quite as, he's still more of an establishment guy than his dad will ever be, but he would have been a good moderate. At least not bad things would. You wouldn't get into a war. I think if anybody would have been the best choice, it would have been Rand Paul out of this run. But they were never going to let Rand Paul get very far. He would be the most incrementally safe way to go. But I knew he wasn't going to get anywhere. That's why he threw in the towel. He knew he wasn't going to get anywhere. Why? His last name. Jeb Bush. Somebody had suggested, would you think Jeb Bush could probably be vice president? I don't know. Well, if Donald Trump is in on the whole rigging of the thing, then yeah, you would see Jeb Bush as a vice president or something like that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Donald Trump is going to whatever that show he had there, he's going to be doing that to a lot of politicians. that he can. Anybody he could fire, I think he's going to fire. I think the way he's going to do what Donald Trump is waiting for is to unleash the guns on Hillary Clinton in the debates. Hillary Clinton, notice she's not doing any media time whatsoever. She doesn't do hardly any interviews whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like, it's like she's just, she goes out and speaks because she has to. That's it. She's really dodging everything. She doesn't want any tough questions or blind sides coming at her. What does that tell you, right? Donald Trump, well, like anything, he's like, well, they only use the mainstream media. Well, they only use sound bites. But then when you go and listen, I want to hear how bad Donald Trump is. You go listen to him. It's like, well, he actually sounds quite reasonable. You know what I mean? Like, in comparison to what, like, he's radical in some ways, but it's like, okay, when they yell the racist and bigot and stuff like that, and, oh, he's going to drop nukes, and then you hear him talking about negotiating with Russia. Again, I don't trust the Russian government any more than the American government, but or any government for that matter right now, because they don't serve the people. Governments everywhere, there are no good guys. They don't serve the people. But I think at some point, that jig's going to be up. And I think after the 2016 election, we either see liberty or we get death. Yeah, it's going to be liberty or death, because people are going to be so fed up when Hillary Clinton wins that you're going to see a military coup, possibly the Third World War, definitely a civil war, a race war, secession movements. Hillary Clinton is there to destroy, to complete what Obama started. And Obama is the same puppet. There's no difference if Obama did a third term or Hillary Clinton gets the next one. It wouldn't matter. They're both taking orders from Mr. Kissinger. They're both following Zebra Brzezinski, the Rothschild, Rockefeller. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and George Soros and all them, they all invested in, I guess you could say invested in the Clintons, the Obamas, et cetera, the Bushes. They're all one family. There's no difference. They're all one system. That's what people, and if anything, I think that's what the Bernie supporters, again, I would never vote for Bernie, not even as a protest vote. Why? Because Bernie's a Trotskyite communist. If Bernie Sanders would have won accidentally, he's in the same bed, Hillary Clinton. He gets the same donations. He's with Goldman Sachs. Oh, yeah, he talks a big talk, but look at how quick he turned on his own supporters, endorsing Hillary Clinton. Trying to use the PC language of, oh, well, anything but Trump, so we're going to, all the attack and all the times, the chances Bernie Sanders had to go for the throat of Hillary Clinton and attack her, he made concessions. Like he could have used the emails against her, and that would have put him out front. So there's a reason why Sanders wasn't allowed to win. I think he was supposed to be, well, basically, they were all in on it. You can see now that they're all in on it together. It's polarized now. There's no doubt in your mind that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, that was the plan all along. He was supposed to be the alternative to Hillary Clinton. But then, however, they kind of Ron Paul'd him a little bit. Not covering him in the media and stuff like that, or whatever, or playing him down or whatever. Whereas if you actually look at the polls, the real polls, Ron Paul was like on top on everywhere. More donations from servicemen and women than any other candidate in U.S. history. More support from them than anybody. Why? Because he was going to stop the wars. But if you stop the wars, you kill the economy right away. Hyperinflation. You wake up, your tuna sandwich that was $2 today will be $22 tomorrow morning if they stop the wars. And the day after will be $220, and then $2,000. Weimar Republic, Zimbabwe economics will kick in. They will have to deflate the currency at a rate that they can't even keep up to. There's no way they can destroy the money fast enough and the economy's at a stagnation anyway. It'll just, it will be very, very bad when that happens. Now, right now, they're propping up the economy and they're raising the stock market. A lot of people think the stock market is the economy, but it's not. That's just the Fortune 500 companies that are getting taxpayer bailouts. That's the oversimplification of it, but that's pretty much what's happening. And they're going to prop this up until Hillary Clinton wins. And then, they might let it go a bit. But if they propped it up, we should have reclapsed had a second collapse in 2012. We didn't. So I've always stuck to my guns and I've been consistent. No economic collapse till war comes. So, the American elites are like, come on, Russia, China, just shoot at us. And you can see that they're getting more desperate. Why? Because I think the Rothschilds and Rockefellers have lost control on a lot of things. And when they lose control, people are going to be going freaking apeshit. This is where you're going to get your destabilization of, that's why they have the distraction things like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. Like, Black Lives Matter here in Canada is stupid. Black people are not repressed in Canada. They're also over there in England as well, and in Great Britain. It's like, go away. George Soros has to go to jail. He is an evil, evil man. He does deserve the death penalty. There's no doubt about that. Where George Soros' money goes, death and destruction follows. Ask the Ukrainians. You arm neo-Nazis to overthrow the government in Ukraine. Next thing you know, you've got East Ukraine, West Ukraine, Russians on one side, and neo-Nazis on the other side. Literally, that's the Azov Battalion, 2nd Panzer Division of the SS Waffen, World War II. That's who they're based on. These guys got swastikas flying off their tanks. Meanwhile, they never covered that part on the mainstream media, stuff like that. And if they did, especially here in Canada, how pissed off people would have been with the Harper government for supporting the Ukraine, supporting the neo-Nazi factions that overthrew the Ukraine. I think a lot of people are going to wake up to that. We do have a big Ukrainian faction here in Canada. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd largest Ukrainian population outside Ukraine. That type of thing. But that said, it doesn't really matter. At some point, people are starting to catch on that the Ukraine would not have been destabilized, and the reasons why they destabilized was for NATO expansion. It's very, very, and the Ukrainians have to be waking up to this. Not just the ones that, I feel bad for all of them. Like the Russians, Ukrainians, the Ukrainians, whatever. They're brothers fighting. And they're doing it because of a bigger geopolitic thing. So that's the worst part. Again, death and destruction. That's all these Rothschilds and Rockefellers. That's all they know how to do is deconstruction. Their cultural Marxism and their deconstruction, that type of thing. And they don't know how to build anything. They're destroyers of humanity. And I think the Russians and the Chinese are well prepared against them because they know, again, getting back to these drills, that if they fire first, they will show that they have a strong arm that they can't be bullied easily. But it's also a provocation as well. So, somebody coming, I don't know if that's my dad or not. Lacey's gone to the hospital today to check up on her leg, my dog. And that's all. So anyway, it gives you an idea of what's going on. I'm sure there's other things I'm forgetting. I guess I'll leave it at about that. Again, interesting time, so I don't know the exact date of these drills, but they're kind of like ongoing, one after another. If it's not this drill, it's that drill. But the Australians, one last thing that the Chinese did say about that is they have no, and something I said in a previous World War III update was the Chinese invading as far down as Australia and taking Australia. How they would do it, I don't know. Even though Australia doesn't have a huge population or a huge military, it's the landscape, right? That'd be a very tough landscape to fight. So I don't know how they would do it, but they are prepared to go that far. So to me, the Chinese will take from China to Guam, maybe even as far move. If they could take Hawaii, they will, and then down to Australia and all the way up. That's what they're planning for, is just to hold the region. So anyway, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody has. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourselves. Be true to others. Always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. G'day, hi, and welcome. I was about to say Q&A. World War III update. I don't have too much, but I have a little, so I figured I'd do that. All right, where should I start? I guess this one's going to have a lot to do with China, so I guess we'll go with China first. Obviously, the provoking in the South China Sea and the saber rattling is, at fever pitch. Obama's there saying that how, we're ready for war with China, so to speak, and that, we're not going to allow China to do this, we're not going to allow China to do that. And you have several other figureheads saying the same thing. Now, that said, China and Russia are going to be doing a joint naval exercise together, and this is where it kind of gets all kind of interesting. Also, too, the United States is leaning on China to kind of mellow out North Korea, because our favorite leader, Kim Jong-un, was there with his very powerful putty fist. He could hit a button at any time. And they've been lighting off missiles and rockets and stuff like that, but they don't really have anything that's stable yet that they can rely on. And the North Koreans basically came out, made a threat about these, naval drills going on, whatever, and in response, the U.S. sent in a B-1 Lancer to buzz the border or whatever, so they're not very happy with that. What does get interesting is, after the ruling of The Hague, you have to understand, there was no Asian countries really represented in The Hague ruling, which really has not, it's a complete separate entity from, there's nothing, China had no representation in this, and they came and decided, said, no, this is not their territorial waters, whatever. So China has been pretty much on edge ever since, saying that, no, we are going to defend our area. and they've been moving missile systems out to islands and stuff like that, as far as 600 miles out off the Chinese coast. So they know war is coming. They have no doubt that the United States is going to war with them. They just don't know the date and time. They've also come out with an official statement, once again from the Chinese government, saying that we're ready to fight a people's naval war in the South China Sea, something along that lines. So People's Republic Army, of China. And that kind of, again, that's pretty serious stuff when it comes right on open TV in China and stuff like that, where they're talking about this, saying, yes, we are going to have a war with them. They won't leave us alone, that type of thing. And again, it's very easy to see who's provoking who. United States is here. China's way over here. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple to see who's provoking who. And, while we can't let China control the shipping lanes or whatever, China is not going to threaten anybody in the shipping lanes. If you haven't picked up about how the Chinese do business, then they do business with anybody that wants to do business. That's all they want to do is do business. They kind of cheat a little. They don't have regulations. Yeah, sure. But they don't care to shoot their potential, blow their potential customers out of the water. They have no interest in doing that. They just want to have the territorial claim. And again, this ninth line zone or whatever, the territorial claim goes back 300 years. It's been a banter of, and again, let the Asian countries work that out amongst themselves. Everybody's taking a claim on it. But the main reason why they're taking a claim on it is simple: resources. It's about, nobody cares about a couple of the Senkaku Dayu Islands. Nobody cares about the islands themselves. It's what's under the islands. It's what's around the islands. There's minerals, there's lithium, there's gases and oils and all kinds of stuff. So that's what it's really about, because that makes China more independent. Now, the Philippines has made a claim to it, Taiwan's made a claim to it, Japan's made a claim to it, everybody's made a claim to it. And Japan, again, their Navy, they're out there saying, yeah, we're ready to go to war with China at pretty much any time. And then coming in on this one, we have some mates from the land down under going to get in on this one, eh? They're going to throw a shrimp on the barbie, take the Collins out for a nice little patrol, and we're going to go spy on the Russians and the Chinese. If they get too close, we'll throw a boomerang at them. A harpoon boomerang from our, sperm whale-like sub, the Collins sub. I don't know how old the Collins subs are. They must be pretty old. Maybe because I'm not up to speed on the Australian Navy. I do know they have a good-sized blue water Navy, but in comparison to China, China has the number 3 largest submarine fleet at 68 submarines. I don't know how many warships they have. The North Koreans have the second largest with 70 submarines, and the United States has the largest with 75 submarines. That said, the North Korean submarines are pretty archaic. Many of them could be classified as prototypes, that type of thing from the 1950s and earlier. But they do have some newer stuff like Kylo-class subs and stuff like that, which for North Korea, those things are pretty dangerous. And the guys, I think, in number 4 are the Iranians with, how many subs did they? They had 60-something. I think they had 63 subs. Again, most of them light, those little midget subs and stuff like that. Or maybe it was 30-something they had. I can't, there's a, no, it was maybe India. I think India had 60-some-odd subs. So all in, I think in active duty, there's something like about 400 subs, maybe 500 worldwide. After the top 5, I know Iran is probably in the top 5, and then after Iran or India, I can't remember who. I think India had a little bit more submarines. And India actually has newer submarines as well. Everybody else drops down to 17, 15, 14, 12, that type of thing. 4, like Canada, we have 4. I mean, if we were to get our old O-boats out, we could add another 17, but those things are pretty much dry docked and rusted out. They can never be seaworthy again. So that gives you an idea. The other thing is the type of submarines and stuff like that. Again, the Trident 2 submarines that Britain has, there's still all the controversy with that. The new Prime Minister, she seems to be okay with the submarine program. I don't think they're going to, regardless of how the people feel about it, I don't think they're going to get rid of that submarine program anytime soon. It is a boomer sub and stuff like that. And there was problems with the missiles, right? So they're revamping the missiles. They're basically updating the technology. Now, the thing about a submarine fleet is that they're expensive to run. I don't think there's a more expensive vehicle on the planet to run than a submarine. It's just such a high maintenance machine, you know. That said, the best subs in the world, well, right now the Russians probably